and we'll get started. Well, good afternoon and greetings from the Office of Research and Creative Activity. Welcome to the webinar on advancing your research with access to the Center for Nanoscale Materials. This webinar series is a part of our effort to provide new knowledge and information to WKU faculty regarding opportunities to pursue collaborative research and access to national laboratories. Our first webinar is a partnership with Argonne National Lab and specifically the Center for Nanoscale Materials, a user facility that provides infrastructure and instruments to study nanotechnology and nanomaterials. This afternoon, we are joined by Dr. Kathleen Carrado-Greger, Associate Division Director for User Programs and Operations, and Dr. Connie Pfeiffer, User Program Manager at CNM. I now request Dr. Carrado-Greger to share information regarding CNM's capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shall I get started? Yes. So I am Katie Greger. Thank you for the invitation to speak to you today. Very pleased to do so. I'll be introducing Connie a little bit later in the talk. So I'm here. You'll see that I'm the Associate Director for User Programs and Operations. And we recently hired a User Program Manager. That's Connie. And she just started last month. And as I said, there she is. I'll be introducing her role a little bit later. So on the right side of the slide, you see an aerial view of the 400 area of Argonne National Laboratory. That's where the advanced photon source is, the big synchrotron ring that you see there. As well in the foreground is a complex of white buildings. That's the main complex for the Center for Nanoscale Materials, or the CNM. Both of these facilities are user facilities, national user facilities run by the Department of Energy, which means that anyone can apply for access to use the equipment they're in. They're brief proposals that are submitted. They're not funding grants, but what you get is time on the equipment or with the scientific staff for their expertise and their capabilities. We do have a large amount of electron microscopes in buildings that are in the 200 area of Argonne. They're off the screen there to the left. This picture couldn't show all of Argonne. And so my next slide, let's see if I can put this in presentation mode for you. I'll just give you a brief outline, be telling you a little bit about staff collaborations, so the staff that we have present, introduce you to a few select capabilities, some details about our user program, some tips about submitting successful user proposals, and a few networking opportunities. So we'll get started with those staff collaborations. And I'm going to introduce you first to our 5-year strategic plan. This is on our website. If you go to our homepage at anl.gov/CNM and about our facility, and you'll see a link to our strategic plan. It's a very comprehensive document. It goes over our user program and our user science and our staff science. Among the suite of user facilities in the DOE, the nano centers are actually quite unique. There are 5 sister facilities that do nanoscience. You might be familiar with the Center for Nanophase Material Sciences at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. That's one of our sister facilities. And there are 3 others. So the scientists in these facilities actually work in what's called a 50-50 model, which is unique among the user facilities. This means that the staff scientists spend 50% of their time doing their own cutting edge research, they're their own PIs, and 50% of their time supporting their user communities and their research. And so we have a nice symbiotic relationship between the user community and the staff scientists. Now, if you don't wish to collaborate directly with a scientist, that's okay. The facility is committed to training users who wish to be independent. So we'll provide training, and then users can be on their way to do their research independently if they choose. The strategic plan outlines our scientific staff's main research areas and the directions that they take. Is summarized under 3 main themes, and those include quantum materials and sensing, manipulating nanoscale interactions, and nanoscale dynamics. The last two there are very broad topics, and so I would encourage you to delve into the details of those to see the specific research directions our staff are taking. And of course, I'll be touching on them throughout the talk. So in terms of our staff collaborations, our scientific staff, we have about 40 staff members, and they are arranged or organized under 5 research groups. So off to the right, you see these badges for the terms that you'll probably see throughout my talk, for the names of the groups. So we have electron and X-ray microscopy, nanofabrication and devices, nanophotonics and biofunctional structures, quantum and energy materials, and theory and modeling. And so with these groups, we can help users with either a very small targeted project on one instrument or a broader project that could encompass creating a nanomaterial, characterizing it by a variety of techniques, and doing some simulations and data analysis. So the entire scope of a project can be addressed under one roof. And this sheet is available on our website. It shows all of our staff members. So the first one that you see on the left there is nanofabrication and devices, for example. It shows the group leader at the top, and then the principal investigators and the technicians within the groups. Their email addresses and their main area of expertise is sort of in just 1 or 2 or 3 words. And on the right side, you'll see the major tools that are managed by those groups. It's not all of our tools, but it's the main ones. And so, if, for example, if you're interested in ultrafast transient absorption spectroscopy, you could go to our nanophotonics and biofunctional structures group and see the people here who are doing that. So Rich Schaller, the group leader, would be a great person to contact. And in fact, here I'm showing you the pictures of our group leaders. Our staff in general are very used to getting calls from researchers around the world. As being part of a user community, they enjoy that sort of interaction. So I don't want people to feel intimidated contacting one of these group leaders or somebody in their group. And so Martin Holt is an expert in synchrotron X-ray diffraction. Ani Sumant leads a lot of our commercial or industrial applications. He's the head of our nanofabrication and devices group. Rich Schaller is an expert in absorption, laser spectroscopy. Nathan Geisinger is an expert in scanning tunneling microscopy. And Subbu Sankara Narayanan is an expert in machine learning and data science. So in terms of capabilities, our website right now has about 12 areas of capabilities. And here I'm going to feature not all of them, but some of them, just to give you, again, an idea of what we have. And so the first 2 on the upper left and center have to do with our clean room, or a nanofabrication and devices group, where we have a very large clean room outfitted with a lot of staff and equipment to do wafer scale and clean room-based nanofabrication, and for making devices at the MEMS and NEMS level. In terms of synthesis, we have chemistry labs, so wet chemistry, that will assist you with making 2-dimensional nanomaterials, nanoparticles, quantum dots, etc., nanowires. And also nanobio hybrids and synthetic biology. We have a BSL-2 laboratory where we can work with peptides, DNA, RNA, even some viruses at the BSL-2 level, for example. So with those 4 capabilities alone, we can address a lot of top-down and bottom-up fabrication of materials. The next 2 capabilities here outline our theory and modeling group's expertise. And so we can do machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science projects. And we have expertise in out of equilibrium optical and quantum materials simulations. Now, in terms of characterization here, we have quite a lot. And so this slide summarizes most of it. On the upper left and middle are two capabilities that we shared with the advanced photon source. So that synchrotron, we have techniques or beamlines that are jointly operated. And you see on the upper left there, Martin Holt, who's the synchrotron X-ray diffraction expert, and also a diffraction technique called tychography, as well as microscopy and fluorescence can be done on our hard X-ray nanoprobe. In the middle top is our synchrotron X-ray scanning tunneling microscope with a technique called X-tip. And pictured there are Nozomi Shirato and Volker Rose, who lead that technique for us. And the upper right shows one of our instruments from the overhead, like a drone view of one of our scanning tunneling microscopes. So we have a large suite of them, variable temperature, ultra-high vacuum, with several different probes. So we can study spins. Some have optical or combined with lasers with an optical probe. And also we can manipulate nanostructures and molecules on one of our STMs. And then we get into electron microscopy. On the bottom left, we have a large suite of electron microscopes, so SEMs and TEMs. We also have a brand new ultra-fast electron microscope, or the UEM, that I'll talk about in an upcoming slide, and an aberration-corrected TEM. In the middle bottom here, we have a new quantum matter and devices laboratory where we can do hybrid quantum science at ultra-low temperatures. And this pictures Dafei Jin, who is the owner of that instrument, and I'll be talking about that more on another slide. And on the bottom right shows Shudan Ma. She's an expert in laser spectroscopy as well. And she also does studies with quantum materials using optical probes. So this highlights our terahertz to ultraviolet suite of ultrafast spectroscopy. And we can also do several different time scales, a big wide range of time, down to femtosecond time. Now our newest user capabilities are shown here. This is just the past 3 years of tools that we brought online for users. And so if people listening to this talk were users in the past, at another affiliation a long time ago, or looked into it a while ago, just want you to know that the CNM refreshes its suite of equipment on a yearly basis to keep up with scientific directions and enhances the equipment. And so this shows just in alphabetical order, some things that we've added for chemistry, material science, for characterization, et cetera. So we have a new ICP OES, some machine learning simulation toolkits. They're called BLAST and Fantastics. The Blue Force dilution refrigerator is that superconducting magnet that I showed you for the hybrid quantum science at ultra low temperatures. We have a new AFM in the clean room, along with many other tools that are on this list, some updated equipment for the clean room. Our powder X-ray diffractometer was updated. One of our biggest ticket items during that time is our Joel electron beam lithography instrument. This is our high-end, high-resolution e-beam writer. We had one that was state-of-the-art at the time when the CNM opened in 2006. It was getting long in the tooth, and we were able to replace it with another state-of-the-art instrument just a couple of years ago. So this 8100 FS is state-of-the-art. Again, some other clean room tools, spectrometers, magneto-electro-optical spectrometer, or the MEOS, and magneto-optical microscope. The tribometer, this is operated by Ani Samant, and this is of intense interest also for our industrial users. This allows for tribological or friction or lubricity studies. So we have a system that Ani has developed for super lubricity. which means ultra low friction. It's practically zero friction. And so he can share information about that system. It involves nanodiamonds and graphene, as well as how to measure with the tribometer. This rheology instrument that's shown here is in partnership again with the APS at Sector 8. And we actually have a rheometer that's permanently installed on one of the hutches of Sector 8. And this allows small angle X-ray scattering and X-ray photon electron counting spectroscopy of very thick colloidal systems. So this is of interest again for a lot of our industrial partners and users for colloidal systems like paints, toothpaste, that sort of thing, very thick liquids. A pico indenter that's brand new, that's an in situ tool for a TEM to measure the strength and fracture properties of a system, of a material. Piezo optomechanical spectroscopy. Oh, this deep reactive ion etcher for silicon is new in the clean room. We responded to our user community who asked us for several years for such a piece of equipment. It's quite expensive, so not a lot of places have it, and we were able to acquire one. This ultra-fast electron microscopy, again, I'll talk about in a moment, and the X-tip beamline I'll talk about in a moment. So here, what I want to do is show you the latest and greatest instruments, capabilities from each group. So for the EXM group, the big stars, the ultra-fast electron microscope. There are very few of these to start with, and this is the only one that's available through a user program. And so it is accessible, more accessible than the others might be. And so this sort of technique allows one to do diffraction and imaging and spectroscopy all at once on one system. And you can see the specifications on the lower right of the slide. For the electrons, the spatial resolution is sub-nanometer, and the time resolution and other parameters there for the laser at the pump of the system. And you can see that it spans a very large wavelength range. We have published already a very recent paper using this tool, visualization of plasmonic couplings using UEM. So if you'd like, you could take a look at that paper and get an idea of the sorts of the power that the technique allows for certain systems. So that was published in Nano Letters. The tool custodians, that's the name that we use for the owners of the tool, are Tom Gage and Haihua Liu. So those names would be the ones to check for if you want to contact for more information. Also in the EXM group is the hard X-ray nanoprobe. Now you might have heard that the advanced photon source is going to go through an upgrade. And that synchrotron has been up for 20, 25 years. It's due for an overhaul. And so its upgrade will bring it into being leading edge in the world. When that happens, the APS will go dark for a year, and they will enhance all of the beamlines just as a result of updating the entire ring. And so at the top of this slide, you see the current state of the X-ray nanoprobe. I think that the upgrade will start in the spring timeframe of 2023. And so you can certainly ask for time on this beamline until then with these parameters. So the spatial resolution allowed with this technique inside a sample, not just on the surface, but the X-rays are so powerful they can go inside and see at 20 nanometer features. And using picography, they can get down to 5 nanometers and with 100 picosecond time resolution. And so they've been able to do some strain studies, for example, using this technique. Now in the future, after the APS upgrade is done, we will have what's being called the 4D, or 4-dimensional nanoprobe. So this figure on the bottom left is showing the current state where the synchrotron beam is actually a line that's coming through to hit the sample. After the upgrade, it will be a point. And that will give much more targeted information of a smaller area. The entire flux will increase 100 times. And so be able to see very small features at low densities. The time resolution, the focus is selectable at the 10 nanometer, 100 nanometer, and micron levels. It will allow some new modes, photoluminescence and X-ray excited optical luminescence, as well as sub 10K cryo measurements and operando quantum information science measurements. So we'll be very excited when this is upgraded. In the nanofabrication group, they're the ones who manage our clean room. On the upper left, you see our blueprint for our main building, which is called Building 440. The very top of that blueprint, you see the round building, that's our main lobby, which you saw in the first slide from our building view. The clean room is expanded here to show you in red, the original C&M clean room, and in blue, the Argonne clean room, which was added on just a couple of years ago. And C&M users have access to everything in the red and blue areas. In total, this gives us 18,000 square feet of class 100 to 1,000 clean room space. And so I talked about some of the new equipment that was installed there recently. It's listed there on the slide, the top half of the slide. This group also runs the Quantum Matter and Devices Lab, as shown on the bottom left. That was the one that showed Dafei Jin running the measurements. So at ultra low temperature, this goes down to 10 millikelvin. There's a high frequency 100 gigahertz microwave network analyzer. And attached to that, in tandem with that, is a high power UV vis near IR tunable nanosecond laser with microwave and optical setups. And so quantum studies can be done under those types of conditions as well, quite powerful technique. The other pictures show items I mentioned, the optomechanical instrument. This is the piezo optomechanical spectroscopy, and the superlubricity lab that I mentioned with the tribological or friction studies. There's a picture of that instrument with 2 in situ Raman spectrometers, with 1 Raman spectroscopy and optical profilometry. So this shows what's available in our nanophotonics and biofunctional structures group, new and enhanced tools that were recently applied. They have a constant refurbishing of the lasers and expanding their wavelengths as much as possible, their time resolved capabilities as much as possible. So some specifications are shown there on the slide. We can go from UV out to mid IR to terahertz. Absorption and emission, and a new technique, this magneto-optical spectroscopy down to 50 milli-K. Optical microscopy includes confocal Raman, low temperature Raman, etc. And again, this is the group where most of the synthesis takes place. So there are many chemistry laboratories and capabilities for making nanoparticles, nanostructures, and the nanobiohybrids, peptides, that sort of thing. In the future, so coming very soon actually, is circular chemistry of polymer semiconductors, managed by the NPBS group. Shown on the left is a picture of our Polybot. And so this is a system to design semiconducting polymers with the idea for flexible electronics. This is set up now, it's commissioned, still, it's on the cusp of becoming available to users. It's not quite there yet, but very soon. This is part 1 of our big investments into self-driving laboratories and automated synthesis. This particular setup is for flexible electronics and designing those polymers with controllable deconstruction and good electronic performance. And you can see the cycle of life there on the right of the processes that are used for this polybot. This laboratory now also has I don't even know what to call it. It's like a robotic chemist. It's a robot that runs on the floor and goes from this instrument to other setups in areas of the laboratory. So it can take a sample to an electrochemical station, to a spectrometer for something else, etc. And so again, that is coming very soon for the user community. For the Quantum and Energy Materials Group, or QEM, this shows the capabilities that are imminent. Again, these are also very close. On the left is our new low temperature STM. And this has been installed, it's being commissioned now. And on the right is a deposition tool we've had for quite some time. It's getting an extensive upgrade. This is for deposition. This is housed in our clean room. It has two parts to it where you can deposit either by electron beams or by sputtering. And a new oxidation chamber is being added. Now, every year, I mentioned we go through this recapitalization. So we update our equipment and capabilities with an internal call and ranking with the funds that we have available to recapitalize. And again, this keeps us on the leading edge. So for FY21, these are the instruments that we decided to go forward with. Now, these are either installed already, several of these are already in the user program, or will be soon. I've talked about some of these already. A few of these have been delayed a little bit because, of course, everything is getting delayed now due to what we know is going on in the real world. But we just had our call for FY22 equipment, and we have another list that we're working on while we're just finishing up this one. So in other words, things are always changing at the CNM. In addition to that, there's some equipment that we just can't afford. When we recapitalize, we have a certain amount of funds that we can use, but some equipment is so high end that we can't afford it. Now, similar to the Advanced Photon Source going through their upgrade, the DOE Nano Centers were also approved to go through an upgrade. It's called a Department of Energy Major Items of Equipment Grant, or MIE, over a 5-year span. I mentioned that there are 5 nano centers, and so each one will get its main pieces of equipment in subsequent years. And so the CNM is due for the bulk of its equipment coming in the fiscal year 24 timeframe. On the left, you see the planned equipment that we will be getting. And on the right, the benefits for our users when this equipment comes. So we're very excited about getting a dynamic double aberration corrected scanning transmission electron microscope. So a STEM. So this will be really bring us into the leading edge for electron microscopy for the community. We're very excited to get that. Also a multi-beam ion microscope. Focused ion beam is the acronym FIB there. Again, you see the price tag for these. They're very expensive. And this will complement our heavily used and aging suite of FIBs. And so we're we'd love to get this one tomorrow if we could. We'd be very excited to get this. This transient photoelectron and cathodoluminescence spectrometer will be collated at another APS beamline. So this will be another technique that we'll jointly share with the APS. This will be at Sector 29. The MOU was just signed with the APS. So this will be part of the upgrade project. This is just over $2 million. We're very excited to be partnering with APS again and continuing to grow our partnership. And then a microscope capable of single spin imaging. This will be another scanning tunneling microscope to complement our already very remarkable suite of STMs. But this will provide access to millikelvin STM and imaging of single spins, so magnetic studies. And in contingency, we hope to upgrade our computing cluster if all the full funding is received. Okay, so now I'd like to transition to details about our user program. And so here, first and foremost, I'd like to introduce the people running the user office. So on the bottom left, Connie Pfeiffer is our new CNM user program manager. And she was a postdoc in CNM before joining in this managerial role, doing STM studies. So she's very familiar with the CNM already, with the user proposal process, and very excited to have Connie on board and to take that over. And Catherine Tietz is our user program coordinator, and she runs the user office. She's the customer service for the user community in terms of gaining access to the site, making sure you have the right training, shepherding our proposals from our proposal calls, making sure that Connie and I are on track with what we need to do with those. So we have 3 proposal calls per year, and those times are synced with the APS. And you can see how that's critical because we share so many techniques with the APS. On the right, you see some CNM by the numbers. We usually have, in normal times, about 600 users per year. COVID has hit us as well. We're open for about 2/3 of the time in terms of our staffing. So our staff is on a rotational schedule. They work on site about 2/3 of the time. And therefore, we have about 2/3 of our user community able to be serviced. About half of our users are from US academia. About 1/3 of them are first-time users. So we always have a regenerating suite of users, new users, big turnover every year. Some other numbers here. We've had at least 1/3 of our users, if not more, are students. And so many of our students are undergraduate students and graduate students. Our users come from across the country and around the globe. You don't have to be from the US to use the user facility. And we have a 75% allocation rate, which is really pretty good. There are some techniques that are oversubscribed, but by and large, most of our techniques are readily available. And this is a pretty good allocation rate, pretty good chances of getting in when you submit a proposal. We do use a proposal evaluation board to review them. It's a mail-in review process similar to manuscript review. And once allocated, proposals are active for 1 year. So as soon as the safety paperwork starts, you get a year from that date. And again, our scientific staff is available to collaborate and or train users on the equipment. So I want to spend a minute or two going over our user access modes. So what I just described really is our general user. Most of our users are general users, what I just described, and most of them come on site to do their work. A remote user, in the past, our only remote users were those who used our supercomputing cluster. Its name is Carbon. Now we can also, meaning since the pandemic started, DOE has allowed us to count our mail-in and mail-out users. So that means you can mail in a sample for research purposes to be analyzed, or we can mail out samples that we create, or devices or fabricated systems that we create for your research. And it also means remote operation of instruments. Some of our instruments are able to be operated remotely. And so that would also qualify as a remote user. Partner users are those who provide us with new capabilities in return for increased access. And those are usually active for 2 years rather than 1. And rapid access may be of high interest to those of you listening to this talk. If you haven't been a user of CNM yet and are unsure about a full-blown proposal, rapid access might be the way to go. This is a one-time request for up to 5 days of equipment use, at any time of the year. So it means that you can submit between proposal calls. You don't have to wait for a formal call to apply. These proposals are not peer reviewed. They just go through a feasibility review. And they're used primarily for you to get preliminary data towards a regular proposal submission. Now, a few words on what we are able to help with during limited operations. So this is the term Argonne has been using for its current status of operation during the pandemic. So we are under what's called limited operations. On our homepage, anl.gov/CNM, there's a section called current user facility access. So this is kept continuously updated with any changes, and it's mostly appropriate for those who want to come on site. So it has to do with COVID protocols, safety protocols for gaining access to the site. Our active experimental projects received extensions all through the pandemic because we realized that that was necessary. Remote access to our supercomputing cluster continued throughout the pandemic. And we were able to ramp up remote access to operate capabilities and mail-in samples. Mail-out programs are available, as I mentioned, for select samples, depositions, and fabrications. For our experimental user projects to be done on site, we are open at the current time from Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Unfortunately, our on-site lodging is not open. And so people who want to come, who aren't local, can use area hotels. Users who are not Argonne employees can sign up for on-site work through their online CNM proposal dashboard. So if you submit a proposal and it's accepted, you will be granted access to your own proposal dashboard where you can manage several things and you can sign up for work. I wanted to introduce you to the Users Executive Committee of the CNM. This is an elected board of CNM users elected by the CNM user community. And they act as our liaison between CNM management and the user community. So they help us take surveys and get feedback from users, very critical information. They have 3-year terms, and 3 members are elected each year. So there are 9 members plus an ex officio member who's the past chair. So I wanted you to see who is on the board. Perhaps you know some of these people. And if you're not comfortable talking to somebody at CNM directly, you can go to one of them to get information about the CNM. We're thrilled to have them in this role. They're big advocates and longtime users of the CNM. So they provide us with input about equipment and resources and strategic growth areas. And they also organize the technical content of our annual users meeting. And I'll talk about that coming up in the talk, because it's a great example of how you can network with CNM. And so I'll move on to successful user proposal tips. If you go to our homepage, go to the CNM website, on the right sidebar menu, there's a section that says user information. So I'll have you click there and you'll see a drop-down menu appear. You see the red arrow. Our next call for user proposals deadline is March 21, for your information. So when you go to that page on that right sidebar, further down the sidebar, you see these 2 red arrows to the scientific contacts and CNM tools and capabilities. The upper one, the scientific contacts, you already saw. I showed you that early in the talk. So that shows the people and the main tools per group. The other link goes to tools and capabilities sheet. So this one, again, organized by group, shows all of our capabilities by group. And this is how the tools appear on the user proposal form. So if you're familiar with this, you'll know what to select on the user proposal form. So again, this shows a lot of instruments and capabilities that we have available. At the very top, where it says become a user, the rest of the links step you through prepare for your arrival, once you're at the CNM, all sorts of resources and links for you to help make your project move smoothly. So to become a user, there are 3 steps, and one is to register, and that's required to be cleared for site access. So either to come on site or to use our computer systems. And so some citizenship information is entered there, etc. And so while that is being reviewed, you can start to prepare your user proposal. Step 2. There are several bullets there. I'm pointing out 2 of them with the red arrows to familiarize yourself with the form's layout and to read a prior successful proposal as an example. I'm going to talk about those in the next slides. And then step 3, once your registration is approved, you can submit your user proposal at this portal. Okay, so this shows what the proposal form contains. Again, there are only 2 to 3 pages and some general information, an abstract, and then a description of research that's about 7 questions or so. So the first is to describe the scientific purpose. And then number 2 is to justify the relevance to nanoscience or nanotechnology. It's very important because we are a nano center. That's one of the main things that our reviewers have to judge against, that it does qualify as nanoscience. Number 3, justify the request for the certain capabilities that you chose. Number 4, describe the samples and procedures. Number 5, previous experience relevant to the research. Number 6, briefly describe any previous proposals you had with the CNM. And number 7 is to include references. Then the next section would be capabilities and usage. This is where you have a drop down to select the capabilities you'd like for the proposal. And then some general safety questions, very high level, like biohazards, carcinogens, human tissues. Those sorts of things take time to settle out. And so we want to know up front to help you get any issues ironed out. This shows what I meant by the drop-down list of capabilities on the proposal form. So you see the form is in a tabbed online format. And this one, the capabilities is highlighted. We selected the electron and X-ray microscopy group, and they selected the hard X-ray nanoprobe. You could also select the ultra-fast electron microscope that's shown down there at the bottom with the different time resolutions that you need. So there, it shows that it does help to talk with the scientists first to help you decide which time resolution would be appropriate for you. So a summary of tips is shown here in one-stop shop. To pass the internal feasibility screen for submitting your proposal, highly encouraged to contact a CNM scientist 1 to 2 months prior to submission. So this gives them time to think about it and to help you. As the call deadline approaches, you can imagine everybody puts everything off to the last minute. And so our scientists might be inundated with requests in a very short compressed time frame, and they wouldn't be able to answer or get to everyone. And so if you give them 1 to 2 months prior to submission, you'll be sure to get more attention. 12 months is the max time frame. Complete the usage questions. So if you asked for the UEM, for example, you might request it to come 3 times for 8 hours a day, something like that. But make reasonable requests with guidance from the CNM staff. We're not able to give someone an unreasonable amount of time. You can't get 2 months for solid time on a piece of equipment, for example, because we have to share with the whole community. Attachments are possible. They're PDF only, and they're only for nanofab process flows and figures and graphics, that sort of thing. The description of research fields, they have to be completed online, we have to have the information loaded into the field electronically. So you can't use attachments for that. The proposal will be returned to you. And discuss flagged safety questions with the C&M staff and safety officer in advance, again, to make the entry just smoother. Then our reviewers evaluate merit and the limited resources for a large user community. So they're looking at the time that you're requesting and evaluating the merit. And these are reviewers who are external to Argonne. And we have at least 3 reviewers per proposal. So the tips here are to limit the scope, to propose a single targeted hypothesis, and to be sure to justify the nano aspects, to fully explain the capabilities, the choices for the capabilities and the usage requests. For a high performance computing cluster Carbon, the typical requests are 100,000 to 500,000 core hours. And they have a nice wiki available at this link, this FAQ, with tips that apply to proposals in general, not just for Carbon. So I recommend looking at that. Provide process flow diagrams for nanofabrication requests. So for clean room work, the reviewers and the nanofabrication staff need to see process flow. The reviewers, we found that our reviewers do expect to see references, and many of them actually read the references. So keep that in mind. And before submittal, we encourage you to reread the proposal from a reviewer's point of view. This is especially important for early career scientists, for students and early career postdocs. To create your proposal, but then pretend you're someone else, to take a step back and read it from a different perspective. Read it a few days later, pretend you're a reviewer, and what would you give the proposal rating for that proposal before you submit it. So briefly, some networking opportunities for the staff. I mentioned it's very important to get to know our staff. One way to do this is to register for a user meeting. Anybody can register for these user meetings. You don't have to be a current user. It's very nice when these are in person and on site. It's better for networking at those times, but still this can be a useful meeting to attend. The nice thing about our virtual meetings is that it's free registration. And our next meeting, these are always held in early May. Our next one will be early May 2022, 2nd through the 12th. And again, it will be free registration. There are a variety of activities in these user meetings. There are many technical workshops, and these are with invited speakers, so you can get some really premier speakers. Plenary lectures, short courses. Even virtually, we're able to offer 1 or 2 short courses, which are quite informative. They're only 3 hours long, and a poster session. If you want to see the formats of previous meetings, there is a link on our website. There's a big box on our website for user meetings, so you can just click that. Another way to get familiar with the C&M is to talk about having a tour, a facility tour. Of course, that's again only when we get back to normal operations. We can't do it now, but when we're in normal operations, contact the user office and see about scheduling a facility tour. And also student programs. I wanted to share with you in case there were any undergraduate or graduate students attending or listening to this talk. Argonne has a Department of Educational Programs. There is a director of that. Her name is Meredith Bushes, and a very nice website. So I'm showing here 2 snapshots from their website of undergrad and graduate programs. You can see there are many of them. And C&M hosts proposals from several students in these programs. So the upper left says Science Undergraduate Lab Internship, or SULI. We have several students. We've had several students in that program. That's a summer program. So even if, when you apply to this program, even if you don't get into the C&M division, if you're in another division at Argonne, You would still apply to use the CNM. You could submit a very small, brief user proposal for a small project, and chances are you would get in and you could take advantage of the CNM. For graduate research, we are able to host a few graduate students with staff in our division, or again, if you're working with somebody in another division at Argonne, you can submit a proposal to access the CNM. I think, okay, just two quick things here. On our website, we have two videos, just a very generic video about the CNM on our homepage. There's an updated version in production. And there's a really nice video, takes you through our clean room. It was produced for National Nanotechnology Day. Dave Sapluski gives this video. He's shown on the bottom right there, getting gowned up in our clean room. He has a video on the scale of things, and it's just a nice video to watch. It's a few minutes, and then he walks you through the clean room. And we have a 360 video in production. It's almost ready. Swishing was ready for this talk. It's kind of like a real estate video where you can go through the different rooms by clicking arrows. So that will be on our website very soon. So that's all I had to show you today. And I'll be very happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Dr. Carretto-Breger, for your insight. We do have a question in the chat. Dr. Jasminka Tursik has a question about what is the maximum magnetic field for the Blue Force LD400 dilution refrigerator system?
You see the wheels turning in my head. I don't remember. Do you remember, Connie? No. Oh, gosh, I don't remember. I'm sorry. Our website can tell you. There's a whole page just on that instrument on our website. I should look it up while I'm talking to you.
Good. I can look it up. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Dr. Tursik, do you want to put some context regarding your research so perhaps the CNM team can also inform you about other opportunities to help with your research?
I have one question before I get to that, but yes, I can. Thank you. First, if, for example, I saw that all of the, once the proposal is put in, and I haven't used the CNM before, but once the proposal is put in, you actually select all the instruments. If we decided we wanted to use another instrument that wasn't in the original proposal, can we add it later on? We have to wait for the next proposal.
It's a very good question, and it happens all the time. We can revise the safety paperwork. So once you're on site, you have what's called a user work approval with all of the SOPs for the equipment that you asked for. So that's standard operating procedure. As long as it's within the scope of the project of the proposal, we can add another SOP to that safety document and get people trained on it. And it actually happens all the time.
All right. So yeah, I do actually single crystal electronic materials and I grow them. So that's my background, but I actually really enjoy that you have the short time sudden measurements because I need preliminary data to apply for the large proposal. And I really like that you actually have that because I was looking for that at some of the other places and I didn't see that they have it. So that would be great.
Yes. We actually don't even advertise it on our website. It's sort of just like word of mouth.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Otherwise, we're afraid we'd be inundated.
So yeah, that would be all. But I like the capabilities. There's a lot. So I think even the stuff that I haven't used before, so it'll probably take me a while to review it and see what I can use at this moment. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Moon-Soo Kim and Dr. Hill, they're chemists. Any questions, comments, suggestions, clarifications from the CNM team?
So hi, I'm Larry Hill from the chemistry department. Sorry, I was a little late. I was in a group meeting, but anyway, you had a slide showing the different types of interactions. One of them was remote samples. The other one, you had a couple of others in there. I don't remember the names of the different bullet points. I was wondering if those are exclusive of each other. For example, could I send in a sample and have someone analyze it on one of these proposals? Is that something that can be done? or are the proposals strictly for coming in and personally using the equipment?
So it used to be you had to come on site to do that,
Mhm.
to bring your samples. But now, since the pandemic, DOE has allowed us for a mail-in program.
Mhm.
So you can mail in a sample and have someone analyze it here.
Okay. And then, and how does one go about arranging that ahead of time? I mean, I imagine that there's a conversation that needs to happen with the expert that'll be doing the measurement.
Right.
Can you help, I don't know, direct me to the right person for electron microscopy in particular? Where we're
Yes.
working with, small nanomaterials where we're trying to get compositional information on length scales of a few nanometers. And
Yes.
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. So our electron and X-ray microscopy group has several members. So you probably missed early on in my talk, I showed what we call our scientific contacts sheet. And that's on our homepage of our website. If you click user information, then on the bottom right, you can find this sheet. Which shows everybody in our division and their expertise, their email address, and the equipment in the group. So for electron microscopy, the group leader is Martin Holt, H-O-L-T.
Okay.
And our electron microscopy expert is, we call him JG. JG Wen, W-E-N is his last name. So it's his first name is Jianguo, Jianguo, but we call him JG. But we have several other electron microscopists, but one of them could direct you to the right person.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
Larry, I have a link there in the chat. If you download that, it's a PDF document.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
So hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Moon Soo Kim, the faculty in chemistry department.
Hi.
So if I need like fabricated device, like MEMS device, can I still request some collaboration or the fabricated device through your service?
Some fabrications are possible. I don't know the extent that they can do. So I would suggest you contact 1 or 2 or 3 people in the nanofabrication group to get the answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the group leader of that group isn't the fabrication expert. Our experts are, so that SciCon sheet that's in the chat, the PDF file, there are 2 names. I would suggest to contact either Ralu Divan, her last name D-I-V-A-N, or Dave Sapluski.
Okay.
I think one of them could help you.
Okay.
And if not, let me know.
Okay. Thank
Let
you.
me or Connie know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Kim and Dr. Hill, I'll share the contact information of Dr. Corrado Gregor and Dr. Pfeiffer in an email.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, clarification? And I could also share examples of successful user proposals. I got actually 3 proposals to review over the weekend. And so I've been on the proposal evaluation board. It's my 9th year. And so I can provide some insights as well.
That'll be great. If you have other tips besides the ones I showed on my slide, let me know.
Well, I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Any other questions to the CNM team, Dr. Hill, Dr. Terzik, or Dr. Kim?
No, thank you. Except for possibly getting this recording, if that's.
Oh, I
possible.
would. Yeah, once it's on the once the cloud processes it, I will certainly share, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.
Yeah, no question for me either. Thank you.
Wonderful. Dr. Kim?
Oh, no question. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gregor and Dr. Pfeiffer. As I said, it's a small group, but I think we don't have the bells and whistles that CNM has. And so it'll be fantastic if faculty could use the facilities, obtain high quality data that will enable them to publish and also seek extramural funding. So I remain grateful to both of you and we'll be in touch. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Hope to see you all soon.
All right, bye-bye.